All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rutgers Rant, special edition, the Kelly Zinn edition of the Rutgers Rant. We have an AD, words that I wondered if we would ever say. Kelly Zinn, one L, an I, not a Y. LSU, jack of all trades. I think we can safely say that President Tate decided to take the wheel of this thing, had enough of the fancy model, said, I want someone I can trust, and got it with Kelly Zinn. We'll break down all of the, the ramifications with this, but I'm going to start with the obvious, that this is the most qualified person that Rutgers has ever hired for the athletic director job. And I don't know if it's particularly close. I get it. She's not a sitting AD. She's not, a big, sexy, splashy hire, but this is a person who's extremely competent. People speak very highly of her. Brian, you did the 5 things to know about her. What else can you tell us, the audience who might not know who she is, about Kelly Zinn?
You came up the top with a hot take there, but now that I think about it, maybe Bob Mulcahy is the closest thing to saying she's the most qualified athletic director of all time. Is quite the,
at Rutgers. Well, what is the number 2? Let's go through it. This is a good point. Pat Hobbs was a law school dean. Tim Pernetti, as highly recognized as he is, was a TV exec. Julie Herman, she had as far as good resumes go, she had a resume, but she didn't have anything to do with football or basketball. Kelly Zinn is the football administrator for LSU at LSU. Bob Mulcahy, political appointment. Fred Bruniger, was he a gym teacher? Honestly, I don't know. Going back in time, then you're in the dark ages. I don't think there's any question that Kelly Zinn's accomplishments are tops of the list.
You make a compelling argument, and I agree with you after you go through it. I appreciate it. Look, I would say this. If this hire had been made 3 months ago and was the first option and they went right to it, I think we'd be saying it was a great hire with a lot of potential, and we'd really be talking it up. And I think it should be talked up. But I do think that the messy, winding road it took to get to this point, having a candidate reject you, going against the premise that you originally started with, wanting a pioneering CEO type deal, which, as you alluded to, probably is dead at this point if you're hiring as much of a career college sports administrator as possible. So I think that muddles the things. But if you look at Kelly Zinn, right, she's been the number 2 at 2 really good athletic departments for 20 years. She was at West Virginia for 2 different decades in multiple capacities, one as a student, one as an administrator. She worked in the Big East office in compliance. She worked in the compliance office at Maryland. And she's at LSU, which is about as big and successful and powerful of an athletic department as there is in college sports, right? So she has the experience. My big question that is not just for Kelly, but is for anybody coming into Rutgers. I know we say a lot that Rutgers is different. I think in her case, the big difference is this. At West Virginia and at LSU, people are lining up to give you money and to support the school. At Rutgers, you are trying to find anybody with a pulse and 7 figures in their bank account that would be willing to give you a crumb, right? So I think, especially now in this new era, that is the big key. Can she leverage her relationships? Can she leverage her personality? I found her to be very impressive from the interviews I've watched in the last few days. Can she do all of that? I think you could look as qualified as you want on paper. I do think there is something to be said that Rutgers is different and not necessarily in a great way. But the best thing for her, I think, is that she can mold the athletic department in her image. There's practically 3 people left, I might be overcounting, in the athletic department at the senior level. So she has a big opportunity here, along with the alignment with President Tate, to revolutionize Rutgers athletics. We'll see if she can do it.
Pat, what's your first impression of this one? Obviously, there's a lot of talk about not being an athletic director. I thought at initial, if they're going to go to the traditional route, they would get a sitting AD. That, to me, knocks it down 1 point. But to Brian's point, can someone from the outside come in here to our insulated world of New Jersey and make it work?
That was exactly where I was going to go with this. And I'm glad you guys both hit on it because I think it's very accurate. We went through the list of how people were hired at Rutgers. A lot of political hires. This is an outside perspective. Someone who's very accomplished in athletics, no question. Even as Brian noted in his post, a great athlete, a pioneering athlete, someone who defined gender roles, or shattered gender barriers, I should say, and fought for equality and things like that. So that's another check on her resume. But again, the fundraising is going to be a huge part of this job. What's different about Louisiana and New Jersey is that New Jersey's government subsidizes most of the athletic department. How is she going to mesh with political powers in the state? Obviously, not having a political background ties to the state. I know that she will have great allies on her side, or a great ally on her side in Greg Schiano, who does know how to navigate that political landscape. So it's pluses and minuses. You take the plus with the athletic resume, and I think you just hope, if you're a Rutgers fan, that she'll find her place in the political landscape.
Right. And I did hear the one thing I heard from a lot of different people about this was the idea of alignment. And it's like a word you hear so much, you throw it around, you're like, all right, well, what does that really mean? I don't think it is insignificant at all that she is as fully aligned with her boss and William Tate as you could possibly have. And I don't know that Rutgers has ever had something quite to that level where the president and the AD are both athletics people, number one, and number two, come from the same place. I would assume number three, want to do this the same way. Like this, that's an important thing. And it wasn't heading in that direction. Like I'm reading the tea leaves here. We can talk about the process how we got here. Brian, you alluded to it. Rutgers did not want this hire. Like in the early stages of this process, did not interview sitting athletic directors, wanted to hire someone who was from the corporate world, someone who was from, that business side of it, who could go out there and raise capital. And I understand that to a degree. But when the process went the way it did, and it became clear that A, Rutgers was married to one candidate who was, for whatever reason, was wishy-washy on the job, and B, that Rutgers was struggling to find someone who was willing to come in, who was qualified to be that, elite number two hire. I think when all that happened, William Tate said, look, that's great idea. I want my guy, right? And Kelly Zinn is his guy.
Yes. And I think ultimately it might be a blessing in disguise because we'll never know, obviously, what would have happened if Brian LaFamina takes this job or any other CEO type, executive type takes this job. But something that I had not even thought of until I've seen some reaction to this hire is like a CEO would be someone that is more prone than a lifelong college administrator to the ever-growing possibility of private equity entering college sports. And I think if you're Rutgers, you don't want to be the school that is one of the first to enter private equity, because private equity, from what we've seen across industries all over the country, is they come in, they skin you down, they take all the money they could possibly make out of you, and then they leave you on the road, right? Or the alternative is some entity that wants to sports wash itself, puts millions and millions of dollars into you, and yeah, you're successful, but at what cost? So
Saudi Prince is going to buy Rutgers basketball. Is that what's happening here?
Listen, I think some people would like that, and ultimately it might lead to some success, though you'd have to sell your soul for it. Obviously, I don't think we're going to have to think about that at all, given where it went. That's something that came to my mind after reading the discussion. But I think, look, if you're Rutgers, the pioneering thing made sense on paper, right? Like you've been unsuccessful for the most part for 150 years. Maybe try something different. Maybe try to be proactive, as I've said many times on this podcast, instead of reactive. But that could go well, or that can go spectacularly bad. At least now they're trying their traditional model with someone, to your point, who is as more qualified than maybe anybody ever has been at Rutgers. And we'll see how it goes. I think she's coming into this, though, with eyes wide open about the challenge, particularly now with all the changes happening in college sports. She seems prepared to handle all that.
Right. Yeah. And Pat, I guess that's a good transition to like I'm making a list of trying to come up with the biggest challenge. I mean, you could sit there for an hour and a half just going through it. It's probably revenue generation, but I would say that I saw a number where, Rutgers has like 9 million in annual giving and LSU is like at 60 million, and just crazy stuff. Like it's a different world for her. That's got to be number one on the list, unless you want to make a compelling case that there's something else that's a bigger challenge.
Wow. No, it's absolutely the money. No question. That's always what it is at Rutgers. And I think that is obviously challenge number one. But like I was saying, with the way the government subsidizes this entire university, that's something you don't get in Louisiana. So a little bit of a reverse situation there. Interesting way to see it either way. But tradition, academic support. These are bigger type questions. How that's all handled. LSU is not Rutgers academically. I think that's safe to say based on rankings and all sorts of academic criteria. But I know we've talked about that when President Tate was hired. So yeah, I just think at the top of the list is revenue generation and just overwhelming support. Right, there's a buy-in in Louisiana that supports their state school. In New Jersey, that doesn't happen. Rutgers does not draw a New Jersey population of fans, and that's the biggest thing holding it back in so many different ways.
Brian, what else is on your list?
A few things. Facilities, at the bare minimum, fixing the rack, whether that is creating more bathrooms and more premium seating, which had been talked about for years, whether it's following the Pat Hobbs fantasy and building a brand new arena. It sounds like she was working on doing that at LSU, though there was a bit of a, I'm not sure, snag in the process because the model they had was the Moody Center at Texas, which doubled as a concert venue and an athletic arena. Turns out the developers that built that are now under federal indictment because of something along the process. So maybe she got out of Dodge pretty well just in time with that. But I guess the point is fix the rack or figure out what to do with the rack. Figure out whatever you want to take from the master plan that Pat Hobbs commissioned like 5 years ago and never anything happened, whether that's a new lacrosse stadium, whether that's development of Yersak Field, whatever the case may be. And then figure out where all these coaches kind of stand. You feel pretty good about where Greg Schiano is, Michael O'Neill, Scott Goodale, and then the list really, Meredith Civico, I should say, and then the list really is kind of like figuring out the priorities there. Get a good grip on what men's basketball stands, figure out, who's could be next on the chopping block, and just figure out how the money should be divided. Because at LSU, I had seen she said something like 75% football, 15% men's basketball, 5% women's basketball, 5% everywhere else. She's at a department where they won 2 national championships in baseball, a national championship in gymnastics, a national championship in women's basketball. That's not happening at Rutgers. So she's going to have to figure out the distribution of the money that way. So I guess the answer is she has a lot of things to figure out. And I'm not sure quite what is the priority.
Right. Yeah. I think that's some of it is more of an opportunity than a challenge. I think, having so many hires in the staff would be, an opportunity for her to come in and bring her own people. And I think that's what's going to happen here. You're going to see a lot of people from LSU, people from West Virginia that she knows coming into trusted roles. This is another one for me, and it's harder to define, but I want someone to give me a vision for this thing. Like to show me a pathway, to say, this is what we're going to be at Rutgers. This is how we're going to get there. Like, I just get this sense now that it's just, we're in the Big Ten. We're kind of floating along, like there's just no central organizing vision for the place, right? Like, what are we going to prioritize? How are we going to, get the resources we need to get there? I just want someone who can eloquently explain that. And I don't think she has to do it on day one. I get it. It's a tough spot. You come into a press conference. There's, but at some point I want to be able to see that from Kelly Zinn. And it's more of just a leadership thing that we haven't had.
Maybe that vision is just how do we, for a few years, get stable again, right? That's you can't get to the end product in this situation in overnight. This is going to be years in the mid. I mean, Rutgers has been in the Big Ten for over a decade, and it's still sort of in the same spot it was a decade ago, right? And maybe even if you could make an argument further behind because of the setbacks in the new revenue generating era. So we'll see. But I think patience will be important, and that vision can't be scoped overnight, and I think it would be unrealistic to think that.
Right. I think this is a good time to talk about where Brian went to breakfast yesterday. Pat, what do you think? It's a good time.
I always love a good backstory.
Yeah, I don't know that people necessarily need to hear how the sausage is made in journalism. It's not very interesting. We spent the past 3 months making phone calls to everyone we could think of about this, anyone who had a morsel of information, so much disinformation, misinformation, wrong information. But, I think we were on the right track with this, that we knew with now President Tate. He had fired the search firm. We knew that. We reported that. we knew that it was going to be his call. But, it's always good to get lucky, right? It's always important to, be in the right place at the right time. Brian, why don't you tell us about breakfast yesterday?
Yeah, so just to set the background, we had heard once the search firm had been dumped that it was William Tate's show from that point on. We heard obviously Greg Schiano and Steve Peichel hint in that direction. So you think back to what you wrote 2 months ago. Is it a package deal between him and Kelly Zinn? So, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever day it was, I started watching Kelly Zinn audio interviews and viewing her on podcasts, and her face kind of just got stuck in my retinas just having watched her, right? So I go to brunch yesterday with my lovely girlfriend to the Frog and the Peach, a nice establishment in downtown New Brunswick. My first time there was quite good. And I walk in and I see a very familiar face. I see Amy Towers, the chair of the Board of Governors, walking in to the outdoor dining area. I think, that's interesting. And then our hostess brings us to the same area, and I sit down across the room, and I see Amy Towers with a very familiar face, Kelly Zinn, and her husband, Nathaniel. And I think this is too good to be true. This cannot actually be happening. So if people read the story, we never give out sources, ever. But if you read the story, the second line is that a person with knowledge of the situation told NJ Advanced Media that Amy Towers met with Kelly Zinn in New Brunswick yesterday. That person with knowledge of the situation was me. So we saw that.
I prefer to think it was Rebecca, your girlfriend. I prefer to think it was that. But okay, if you want to take credit for it, that's fine.
Well, then it's multiple people with knowledge.
Multiple sources. The best part about this, Pat, is I get this text. You get this text. We're in the text chain. Get this text that you're not going to believe this. And I tell you, it just made I don't have a lot going on. I'm a 52-year-old dude. There's not go to see the X-Men movie. It wasn't like a busy day. You get this text that Brian, it's like, wait, you're at the Frog and the Peach, and what? His
hollandaise exploded.
It's hollandaise, and of all places too. That's the other part about this is I gotta give you a demerit there, Amy Towers, for taking her to the Frog and the Peach. I'm sorry, it is coaching AD Surge 101. You've got to leave the town. There's only one. I don't live in New Brunswick. I don't dine there often. But when someone says to me, hey, you got a recommendation for a restaurant in New Brunswick? I go, the Frog and the Peach. It's like that or Qdoba. And Qdoba might have gone out of business. I don't know any other place to eat in downtown New Brunswick. You got to go someplace other than that. Come on. All right, finish the story.
Have some respect for Steakhouse 85, another fine establishment in downtown New Brunswick.
That's not a brunch place. You can get a steak at
it doesn't open until 5 p.m., so you're correct.
Okay.
It's not a brunch place. If you're going to bring them to brunch, that is the one place you go to brunch. That's why I went to brunch, right? It actually was I don't know if you guys know this, Restaurant Week in New Brunswick. There's a whole 2-week deal where you had specials all over the place, and the Frog and the Peach was on our list. We were going to go Saturday, but it was closed on Saturday. I mean, it felt like the universe was conspiring for this moment. And I got to tell you, I may never have a moment like this ever again in my journalism career. When I fired off that text, it was electric.
So you dropped your fork at one point, your knife at one point?
Well, the waitress did. The waitress dropped my knife and brought a lot of attention to me. And I was worried my cover was blown. But I think at this point, it's kind of a moot point.
Right. Yeah, pretty clearly. Yeah.
It's one of the most unbelievable stories I've ever heard.
I mean, even Pat Hobbs took Chris Ash to Morristown. Right? Remember that story? I mean, you guys were even on the beat then, where we're here to tip someone recognized Pat Hobbs at the hotel in Morristown, and I was the closest one. So I get in the car to drive up there, but they had already left, and I'm walking around with a photo of, I forget even who it was, of a different coach, trying to figure out if it was anyway. So great stuff.
Well, look, in Amy Towers' defense, the crowd at that brunch did not seem to me to be a college sports fanatic crowd, right? These aren't people that are packing SHI Stadium on Saturdays, I got to say. So if it wasn't for me being there, I don't think anybody would have recognized them. Just saying. I think even in Baton Rouge, 50% of people would recognize the deputy athletic director at LSU. Is that fair to say?
I bet you it's at least 50. Kelly's in. She goes out. People are stopping her. In Baton Rouge, absolutely. I think she can't. She's not going to breakfast at the Frog and the Peach in Baton Rouge. The frog, and both the Frog and the Peach, deep fried in Baton Rouge. You can get that. You can get that as an appetizer down there, I'm sure.
Here's an OG New Brunswick. The place where we had our live podcast used to be a New Orleans themed restaurant. How How coincidental would it have been, and terrible at the same time, if Amy Towers took her to that restaurant?
We're gonna make you feel right at home.
I can't remember what it was called. Someone text me or
I think it's
tweet
Old
at me.
Bay, was it not?
Old Bay, yes.
Was it Old Bay?
Yes.
The new one is Blackthorn,
Yes.
which is another excellent establishment. I'm a connoisseur of downtown New Brunswick eateries. So
Can
I have yet
like
to find
an omelet at Blackthorn? Do they have brunch, Sunday brunch at the Blackthorn? Because it was a good place too. I shouldn't diss the Blackthorn. Fair enough. Right.
I think so. They have excellent steak tips, though. That's my favorite meal of theirs.
Fair enough. Okay. So at that point, we kind of knew where this was headed. We had a hunch it was headed in this direction anyway. It's going to be a culture shock. And I would be funny you mentioned that just about Kelly Zinn coming to New Jersey. You know, maybe it's obviously just a different world from LSU. You got Death Valley down there. She's going to be up here and we got the horn, right? Welcome to Jersey. What's it like? What's the atmosphere like? What's the atmosphere like at the Sorry. Can we edit that out?
No, we need to make it louder so it's actually closer to real life.
I was going to say, I think we have our first clip for our viewers and super fans.
Oh boy, good stuff. All right. What else you got? Any other observations about Kelly Zinn before we take some questions? I'm looking forward to seeing how she handles the media. One thing I will say, and this is key. This is good point. One of the first things I did was call a couple people in the LSU media just to get a sense for what she's like to deal with and what she's like, how she handles the media. And it turns out that she handles the media. Like that's her thing. Like she does a good deal of interviews on the revenue share. She was point person on that, podcasts, and Scott Woodward, the AD, is the one who is more reclusive. So unlike Julie Herman, who came here and had pretty much never seen a microphone, we have someone who is quite skilled and used to dealing with the media, which I hope means a front-facing AD. We shall see.
The only other thing, her husband Nathaniel was a kicker at West Virginia for at least 1 year in 2003. They played at Rutgers that year. I was curious. I know he didn't kick. I don't think he has a single stat, but I'm curious if he was at Rutgers in 2003 and saw the rise of the Schiano era up close. I don't know.
Good question. All right. We have a lot of questions about this. Let's go through as many as we can. Qualifications. What does Zinn bring to the table that we haven't had? Good question. What does Kelly Zinn bring to the table? What do you guys got?
Well, to your point earlier, she has experience at 2 successful athletic departments, and she has had a lot of power in those athletic departments, particularly at LSU. So she knows what a functioning, strong athletic department looks like. Julie Herman was at Louisville, I think, during the Rick Pitino situation. It was successful on the court, but it was a bit of a situation off the court, right? So, and then obviously, as you mentioned, Pat Hobbs was a dean at a basketball school. Bob Mulcahy was a political appointment. Tim Pernetti was a TV exec who played at Rutgers when, again, this was the 90s when Rutgers was far from a big-time athletic department. So she certainly brings more experience in that than any other previous AD, I would say.
Right. I think that's the answer. Competence. Yeah. Someone who's had been in a place and has done it before. Like that's what I heard almost universally from everyone I've talked to about her is that simple. This is not a complicated answer. So this is a complicated answer. So is the new age CEO executive role seems to have gone by the wayside. So what now would be the plan to oversee revenue sharing and the plan for NIL management? A separate hire under Kelly dedicated to this, a separate hire reporting to the president, something else? Great question. We can't answer that. I think a lot of people during the process wondered if Rutgers was inverting this, right? If putting the money guy on top, putting the AD, the one who runs the department, if that should have been the other way around. And that's the way it is at Clemson. It's the way it is in a lot of other places. I will be curious to see how Kelly Zinn addresses that. That should be one of the first questions. Is she going to have a structure like this? Is it going to fall under Samco, the new company that's been established for this kind of thing? It's interesting. And I don't know.
At least her background, she was the point person for NIL and revenue sharing at LSU. So I think there couldn't be, to go back to her qualifications, what makes her an ideal candidate. That's got to be number one. So you would think at the very end of the day, she'll have, I would assume, a point person, one probably from her own background, that is her, number two in the athletic department. That will be her voice and her shoulder to kind of bounce ideas off of.
Right. Yeah. Forget everything about the championships they've won. Just go on to LSU's NIL website. They've got like 5 people running it. I mean, this is the University of Livy Dunn, Angel Reese. This is, they know how to do this.
Jaden Daniels, Paul Skeens,
Yes.
big time athletes, like
Right.
big names that transcend college sports. The thing is, they have a blank slate here, right? With the athletic department, not only at the senior level, but just, and she has worked at an athletic department with, she said on a podcast, 350 people. That's a lot of people that were working beneath her that I don't think Rutgers is ever going to get to that size, but I am curious about the structure. I'm curious how they will basketball hire a GM? Like, will that be part of the structure? Like, will there be people leading programs that then report to her? Is she going to have one point person in the athletic department handling all that outside of football? How does she work with football? Like, how interconnected are those offices after with, in the previous regime, it was essentially 2 separate entities. Are they going to get closer? Are they going to work together? I think there's a lot of questions that, hopefully we get answers to in the coming months, but that she's going to have to figure out what works best.
All right, another question. Do you guys think the idea of hiring some outside-the-box pioneering hire was as harebrained as I did, seeing how it would appear that we've never actually tried hiring a qualified person within major college sports before? Again, I think it just goes back to, I don't think it was harebrained. I think it's a good idea, but it comes back to the person. And if you look at the candidates, look at the finalists, like why weren't they comfortable going from the number 1 finalist to the number 2? Like, there's a lot of questions. How many people are out there like a Brian LaFemina, who's the person who turned them down? Like, the list doesn't appear to be very long of people who have extensive backgrounds in raising money on that side of sports, who are also in position to take over college athletics. Like, there's a lot of boxes here to check. I think that was part of the problem. Like, they got married to not the structure, but the person.
Like any idea, it sounds good in theory. You could argue the positives, you could see the negatives. Ultimately, we wouldn't know what would happen, unless LaFemina was hired and he could, all the questions we have now about structure and hiring people for Kelly Zinn would be the same for LaFemina. I like, as the person, again, who pushes for being proactive, I liked the idea. They just couldn't execute it, which, again, we'll never know how it would turn out. I still think if you were able to, rather than take 6 weeks to figure out if he's the guy, cut that in half, maybe things would have worked out better. But in theory, on paper, I like the idea.
All right, another question. It's not everyone was like waving the pom-poms. Does this hire have a failing to meet the moment feel to it? We essentially hired LSU's Ryan Passari, except with no ties to Jersey or Rutgers. Without that background, how does this person raise money to make us competitive? What is the sales pitch? I mean, I just disagree with the analysis. I understand where you're coming from. No Jersey connections. The one strike against this, again, I thought if you're going to hire someone with a traditional background, you would hire someone with a sitting AD. But now you're talking about, okay, do you want the AD from Tulane, or do you want the assistant AD who's essentially running the show from LSU? Like, who has a relationship with that's what you're weighing. You're not getting the AD from LSU. You know what I'm talking about? This is what you're weighing. So, I see what the point is. What do you guys feel about that? Like, is there some risk associated with this hire?
When Rutgers decided to hire William Tate, I think it already decided that this is the direction it was going. I think that's kind of exactly how you alluded to. So if Rutgers University was okay with hiring an academic from the SEC, that was the model it was going, and this was the hire that was probably going to happen. So, I just think I agree with you. I'd rather have LSU's Ryan Passari than the AD of Tulane. I absolutely agree with that point.
I think I'm not sure I agree with the analysis that this is the Ryan Passari of LSU. LSU is not Rutgers, right? Like, Ryan Passari worked at a university that has not won a national championship in, a team national championship in how long, right? Like, LSU won 4 national championships in the 4 years she was there. It's a big time difference, just not as the person, right? I'm not comparing Ryan Passari to Kelly Zinn. I'm comparing the situations they were in, just completely night and day. Rutgers failed to meet the moment, I don't know, 4 months ago when they still hadn't hired an AD after Pat Hobbs resigned in August, when they went an entire calendar year, maybe when they got to their second interim athletic director, maybe when they dumped the search firm, maybe when they took a month and a half to get rejected by someone. Rutgers failed to meet the moment long ago, I think. I think ultimately, given the process, given who they hired, and given the pool they had to work with, which I cannot imagine was that deep, I cannot think of many better hires they could have made than Kelly Zinn, right? Like, are there better, more qualified people in college sports? Sure. Would they have taken the Rutgers athletic director job? Probably not, right? Like, I think this is about as good as it could possibly get, which, take that for what it's worth. But you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the way I see it.
I think you're totally on board. You did hear that there were some sitting ADs who were interested, and they didn't, I don't know if they reached out to them or not. I don't know if President Tate, and this is the next question, it ties in. People want to know how quickly was this decision made? I asked why this is happening right on the eve of Turnkey being told their services were no longer needed, whether it's a great hire or not. Was this rushed if the reports were true that the search would start over? I understand what you're saying. It seemed like they went from, we're going to get the new structure, Turnkey, to, oh, here's Kelly Zinn. And it happened quickly, but I'm guessing that behind the scenes, it wasn't happening that way, that I imagine William Tate was going through his mind on this. All right, who do I want if this doesn't go that way? And I give him credit, because it would have been easy as the new guy to say, you know what? I got here late. This is your process. And what would happen if they started again with the same structure? They decided they needed to find the next Brian LaFemina, and ties to the next question. Mike Polisi, who was the runner-up, wasn't the guy. I mean, we could be going in. I mean, that could be the situation where your interim AD is greeting the buses, during the season. There is some urgency here. Maybe not like, alarms, 4-alarm fire urgency, but come on, they had to get this done. I mean, let's get started. Let's move forward with somebody. I mean, I think that's part of it.
Yeah, and look, this is some educated speculation, right? But Kelly Zinn applied for multiple athletic director positions this offseason. My understanding, she was a finalist for the Georgia Tech job, right? So she has long been actively looking for the job as the leader of an athletic department, right? So I think it's fair to say that she would take this job in a heartbeat, right? It was never a question of whether Kelly Zinn would take this job. It was always, would Rutgers turn to her? So I think, I don't know this. I have to think William Tate knows her, would think that was always a possibility. Like, not to say that she was a backup plan, but that possibility of her taking this job would always be there so long as she didn't take another athletic director job, right? So I think the moment he decided to take charge of this thing, he was going to be the number one, and he felt pretty good about what would happen. So that's why this thing kind of moved as quickly as it did.
You hired, look at it this way, you hired William Tate for this. Like you hired Bob Barchi, the previous president, 2 presidents ago, to merge the medical schools. You didn't do that and then tell him how to do it. Like, you hired him to do it, and he did it. Like, so you hired William Tate to take some control of athletics. The guy had been around Kelly Zinn at the highest at the games. You saw it's not like he had a casual passing interest in athletics. He was deeply invested in athletics. The man knows her, right? This is not the situation where you're sitting down across the table with tell me about your experience, Kelly. Like, I think this is a different kind of situation, interview wise. And that's where it led.
Yeah, I would really love to understand the relationship and how different things started to go with the search firm and Turnkey, and how that relationship started to unfold and probably unravel once William Tate was hired as the president, because it seemed his agenda was kind of at a conflicting polar opposite of what actually the search firm was looking for. So at the end of the day,
I'd like to know what point that happened. That's a great point.
Yeah.
When was it right away, or was it during the process?
Was it a condition of him taking the job? I mean, seriously.
I don't know that. I don't know. It's a good question. Really good question. I don't think we'll ever know. But
right.
If you want to call me, anybody involved, my phone lines are open.
Really quick note on the relationship. Kelly Zinn signed a contract extension with LSU through 2030, she signed it in March. Her boss, William Tate, signed it in mid-April. I don't know the timing of all this. He took the job at Rutgers, or got the job at Rutgers in mid-May. I have to imagine he would have interviewed by then. The interesting thing to me is that contract, like her previous contract, did not have a buyout. And I just don't know how common it is for the president at LSU to sign contracts. Maybe he signs all of them. I don't know. That just struck out to me. The timing of the contract, the lack of the buyout, and who signed it, just something to throw out.
All right, this is a fun one that's floating around the internet involving Mike Polisi, the runner-up, I don't know, was the runner-up to the first process. A long time sports exec, lots of ties in New Jersey, lots of ties at Rutgers, hypothetical, and one big tie to Peter Cancro, the Jersey Mike's sub founder. Hypothetical, the owner and founder of a multi-billion-dollar sub shop chain was willing to donate $100 million to Rutgers Athletics under the condition that his guy was hired as AD. Would you take the money or would you move in another direction? Fun question. I think the answer to that is a freaking course. You would take the money and you would name me. If I had $100 million, you'd name me AD. I think. I don't know. We just don't have the evidence that happened. Right. Like, I just don't I get it. Like, there's this speculation that, that'd be great. That's certainly a good name to have in your Rolodex, that you are lifelong friends with a billionaire. But that didn't, Peter Cancro could have done a million things, could have called him, could have lobbied, could have called me. I would have written a column, could have done anything. I reached out to him. It just doesn't seem like that was publicly out there. And again, it's speculation to think that he was waiting for Mike Polisi to get them jobs so he could throw some of his fortunes at a struggling athletic department. I don't know that that's true.
He already does so with the rack, right? He already pays Rutgers to slap his company's name on the rack. If him or anybody offered Rutgers $100 million to hire somebody as the AD, if he asked for his infant son to be athletic director, Rutgers would be stupid not to hire that person on the spot, right? So I have to think, no matter what we think about Rutgers, about the leadership, about the history, about anything Rutgers related, if that situation was even remotely close, 100, 75, 50, whatever that, anything above that, if that was ever a situation and they turned it down, incompetence would be too light of a word. So no, I don't think that happened. I don't think that was ever really, that to me seems more like fan fiction than reality. Because again, if that was even remotely close to reality, they would take it. And Pete Cancro shows up at football practice. He's around the program, like he's around the school, right? It's not like he needs his buddy that he grew up with in Point Pleasant to show up to suddenly be involved. Like, he's around. I'm not sure. Again, if them hiring his buddy would have increased his involvement and his investment in the program, I have to think they would have done it.
Peter Cancro already has this charity of choice, so he shows it off on the day of giving. Rutgers wouldn't be his charity of choice. Well, this is a charity case for a corporate business to say, I really want to. I hate the whole concept of like the vitamin water guy. I think that's like the craziest thing in college sports. Like this like pipeline dream of a corporate partnership that's gonna save the day. I think that's just so crazy.
Totally. But
it's everyone's hope, though. That's the hope.
It's like everybody's hope. Yeah. All right. There's just, we had a ton of questions on Twitter. Can't possibly get to them all. Can she put an end to the football horn? Wouldn't that be great if her first day, she's like, talk about winning one for the people and the horn is over. She came up and just, killed it on day one at her press conference. Probably not her priority though, but we'll certainly ask her about it at some point, because that's what we do here at the Rutgers Rant. Will she be able to make us a legitimate contender through NIL fundraising? You got to remember, that's changed a lot, right? The NIL part is no longer just, throwing money from donors. There's a lot going on here that involves, a different structure. That's a question we'll ask her. Certainly it's going to be something we're going to have to talk to her about. And what is her experience with fundraising? That's been a big one. Brian, you said that you looked at this a little bit, that she has been directly involved with that part of it at LSU.
She was part, I think, of like the strategizing of NIL and revenue sharing. I don't know if she was directly involved with, going door to door, going to tailgates and asking people directly to donate money, but she was a big part of the apparatus of the strategy, which I think is just as important at Rutgers, right? Not only identifying people that would give the money, but having a strategy, a pitch, an idea that you can tell people, like, if you give us this money, we will do this with it. We'll have a plan. We'll work with Coach Schiano, whatever the situation may be. I think she has the vision. And then she also must know, having worked at LSU and West Virginia, the kind of people you have to hire to get the money, right? People that can identify and sell potential donors. So I think that would be a strength of hers for sure. And
to be clear, this is not just, asking Ron Garutti for whatever he's left in his bank account and people like that, shaking down the same 12 people. This is establishing corporate relationships. This is establishing different lines of fundraising. I think that's what people believe is the untapped place to do it. And I think that's, again, going to be one of the first questions we ask. All right. I think we've touched on all the questions. If we missed them, I'm sorry. We'll have a press conference presumably this week. We'll ask some of them to her, and we'll see how it is.
Sorry to keep doing this.
No.
The one donor that she would be uniquely positioned to speak with, Joe Agresti, a Rutgers alum, former Rutgers wrestler, billionaire car dealership guy down in Baton Rouge, friendly with Nick Saban. I'm not sure what his involvement is with his alma mater, if at all, but she has the unique connection, working at his alma mater, roots in LSU. I am sure she's ran into the guy. She might have even bought a car from the guy. Who knows?
Right.
That, if it's not her first call, has to be one of her first calls, because if there's anybody that could be a sugar daddy that's not Pete Cancro, it's that guy.
Wouldn't that be great if all this Cancro talk, she brings her own billionaire. I got a billionaire right here.
I got a billionaire. We need a billion. Oh, I don't want to say anything.
What? Need a billionaire.
The Rutgers Rant could use a billionaire.
We have a great sponsor. We're good.
Of course, we got the Hellgers Hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, what more could you want? Give me a break.
Well, you can get a car from Joe Agresti's Mercedes-Benz empire and drive it up the turnpike to the Heldrick and stay a night. How about that?
Nice. Love it. All right. Good segment. We'll have plenty more to talk about her. Also, today, two big other developments happened. In the World Football Camp opened, and we have an arrest and the great robbery, the burglary at SHI Stadium. Fonseca, which one do you want to talk about first?
I'll be brief with the Bulgur. I can't say the word. Now you got me all messed up.
Right? It's a hard word.
Burglary.
No.
Bulgari. There you go. Whatever. Anyway, yes.
This is like me. This is like me with Omori
or Kaliakmanis.
Shiraka. Yeah.
Shiraka.
Harasimiak.
Okay.
An 18-year-old man from Piscataway, Brandon Chavez de la Cruz, has been charged with burglary, theft, criminal mischief, possession of burglar's tools, and conspiracy. So he, I believe, pled not guilty from what I saw. I don't know what the situation is. We have not received information from RUPD about what exactly was taken. I opened for all documents possible, and I'm waiting stuff from that. But they found their guy, allegedly, and that's the update.
Okay. Good to know. I can sleep better at night. All right. Start a football camp. Greg Schiano speaks. He did not speak on Kelly's Inn. Did not want to trump the announcement, which a lot of people feel that way. I understand it. What else? Wily Kier reclassifies. Was that the big news, or was there anything else that was a bigger development at camp?
Yeah, Wily Kier reclassified over the weekend. That was big news because he is the highest ranked recruit Rutgers has gotten in Schiano's second stint, ranked 103rd nationally in 2026. That's pretty good. When you're a top 100 recruit in football, that's incredible. He's this wiry 6'6" defensive end with immense potential. Now he's in the program. He can lift weights, get bigger, get acclimated to the playbook, and most important of all, cannot get poached by Penn State and all these other vultures that are coming around him after he had a huge summer on the circuit, looked bigger, tested off the charts in a bunch of these camps. So if he had not done this, I mean, September, October, Schiano would have been sweating like crazy that someone would come in the 11th hour. Now they have him in. They're going to have to pay him now that he's in the program, but you hope that keeps him connected to the program not only this year, and then probably he's going to redshirt this year. I would be shocked. He's 6'6", 215, 230, somewhere in that range. Not big enough to play defensive end in the Big Ten, but you give him a year, maybe next year he plays a role, and I think this kid, I should say, he's a kid, is full of potential. So that was the big news. He's not here yet, to be clear. Has to go through some logistical things, just to get it, but he should be in camp sometime this week.
I get that he'll redshirt. Will we see him at all in the field, or is that? I mean, I saw a picture of him. It might have been a couple. It might have been an old picture, but yeah, he looked more like a wing forward than a D end.
Well, the crazy part about this, just a reminder that this same scenario happened with Antoine Raymond, the running back, last year. Right, he reclassified to join Rutgers ahead of time, and then played as a true freshman. Played really as a high school senior at Rutgers last season. So this isn't unprecedented, even for Rutgers. And crazier things have happened. I mean, just like I said, Antoine Raymond is proof that maybe this guy's obviously defensive end is a lot different than running back, but still, crazy situation. / not crazy.
I think the position is the difference here. And he also has a lot of guys in front of him between Eric O'Neal, Bradley Weaver, Jordan Walker, Jordan Thompson. Like, I think it wouldn't be a good sign if he does play, right? I guess it would be a good sign in the sense that he'd be ready, but maybe not a good sign if those other guys are getting beat out by a high school senior, right? So I think maximum he'll play is 4 games to preserve the red shirt. And if he does play, it'll be spot duty, like very specific situations. This is more for the future than it is this fall.
What else? What was Greg's mood? We still have happy Vegas Greg, or is he back to business Greg? What do we have today?
We had sweaty Greg. It was hot as hell.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like a sauna, according to our own weather reporters at NJ.com. You get to the podium and just chug the whole bottle of water because he was probably out sweating like crazy for 2 hours. But after that, he was pretty business as usual. Greg mood. The one thing he did say that I thought was interesting is he confirmed what we all know, that the 2 starting linebackers will be DJ Jabomi and Moses Walker. Feels pretty good about those 2 guys, and the battle was below them. Other than that, nothing really newsworthy out of the presser. Nothing really newsworthy out of the roster. Nothing really newsworthy out of the first day of training camp, which I guess is good. The opposite could be bad news.
Excellent. All right. Before we sign off, anything else? What did we miss?
We have the hire will be made official at a Board of Governors meeting Wednesday morning. That's they'll get rubber stamped. And yeah, looking forward to hearing Kelly Zinn's vision for the athletic department. Major opportunity in front of her. We'll see if she can make the most of it.
Yeah, we'll find out we'll try to ask her some questions. See if I don't know when the press conference is going to be. I assume they're going to have one soon after that. This is the kind of thing you want to kind of get behind her and let her get started. I don't think you don't want to wait. Yeah, I'm curious to see her answers. A lot of things about it are going to be fascinating. I'm curious to see what William Tate has to say about it. I hope he's there as well. We have not had an opportunity really to talk about him about sports. These are the 2 most, other than Greg Schiano and Steve Peichel, these are the 2 most important people now in Rutgers sports right here. And they're brand spanking new with new ideas, new approaches to this thing. And I think that is a good thing. Absolutely.
To talk about all of this, please join our Discord channel. It's going to be linked in the description of this video. A lot of people have been having spirited discussions. I'm sure you guys have seen about this AD, and we welcome all new Rutgers fans that want to talk about it in our Discord.
And if you see Brian at a restaurant, if you see Brian like at a New Brunswick and having brunch, let the man enjoy his meal, right? Come on. Poor Rebecca. Out taking your girlfriend out for a brunch and immediately get pressed into work.
She was a good camper about her Sunday with me being essentially ruined, but she understands it's part of life.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. We will be back soon to talk about Kelly Zinn, football, everything else. Catch you then.